Welcome to F4 Talks. With me is Air Commodore Ashutosh Lal. He is one of the superstars from the Indian Air Force, but now he is a civilian helicopter pilot. He has audacious ideas about helicopters as a country's development index, and he views India as a case study. So let's explore what he has to say. Welcome, Ashutosh.
Atul, thank you very much for that. You've heard about many development index of a country, of a society, of a nation. At
the most famous Human Development Index, HDI.
Yeah. Of course. Everybody's making their matrices on that, actually. I'm a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
Right? So I've served about 35, 36 years in the Indian Air Force, flew a lot over there, type of helicopters and aeroplanes. Then in the civil, I flew helicopters for about 5 years now. I'm still flying, technically speaking.
Yeah.
So what, 8,700, 800 hours of flying all put together, which is not much. There are many more who are ahead of me and beyond, actually.
Yeah, but enough to understand the field.
So this is where I sort of apply my mind to the whole thing, actually, and I bring you this unique hypothesis to your listeners, ladies and gentlemen. I feel that helicopters in the civil world, right? Helicopters in civil aviation are a unique index for the state of development of that country, of that nation.
Why?
Why? So
always the why. I follow the Socratic method.
Oh yes, of course, yeah, that needs to be talked about, actually. So to answer your why, let's rewind, actually.
Sure.
I understand that your viewers may not be exactly plugged into helicopters and civil aviation.
Very few.
So let me take
and a lot of them are in the US and UK and Europe, and they'll take things for granted as well.
Right.
And some in India would not have thought of it. We have an international, a really global audience. So we've got to explain things clearly.
So this egg beater of a machine, whirling rotors, chopper, many names, actually.
Yeah.
One of the loose definition of helicopters is also some 20,000 nuts and bolts flying in close formation.
Lots of moving parts.
Yeah, lots of moving parts. The helicopter pilots are it's like mostly hard of hearing and see things very close by and so on and so forth. So this egg beater happened to the world in 50s. In 50s.
1950s. So it's a post-World War II machine.
Well, to be very honest, the helicopters were there in Second World War.
I see.
And they were used very well over there. They were very good machines at that time. There's a wonderful video on the YouTube called Horizon Helicopters. Your viewers may like to see that once if they want to understand the trajectory of helicopters also.
What's it called, please?
Horizon
Helicopters.
Okay. There's an interview by an old German woman test pilot who had done first the few flights of the prototype in German army that time, Second World War, when the helicopter was coming.
So the Germans came up with the helicopter.
I'm not going into the 1903. Who came first? So let me tell you.
I don't know enough, so I'm happy to confess my ignorance.
Let me tell your viewers that there are many who would claim this or the other, but I would be distracted from my basic point. Okay. So let me just come back and chase actually that
1950s helicopters start taking off.
This month of March and 10th of March 1954 helicopters came to India.
I see.
10th of March. The raising of the first helicopter unit of the Indian Air Force, 104 helicopter unit, my unit. I was commissioned to that, actually.
And you commanded it?
No,
you didn't.
I was a 2IC there, the flight commander. So I commanded 125 helicopters. So 104, right now, sort of mothballed, unfortunately, waiting for the airplanes to come, whichever way. But that is the date when helicopters came to Indian skies. All right. Sikorsky, S-55 was the machine. Bell 47G flew then. These are all, I'm sure some of your listeners who are abroad, they would know these names. Yes. Sikorsky is one basic pillar of helicopter development. Bell is another one, right? Now in Europe, there is Leonardo, there is Airbus, such a big consortium which is churning out that was erstwhile Eurocopter or Aerospatial from France actually. They were that the house which has built up now. So there were many such. So we started with Sikorsky S-55 in Indian Air Force and how it all happened. So that is to say that many countries in the world had not seen helicopter by that time. So we started, in our understanding, quite early.
Pretty early.
And through the armed forces, exclusively through the armed forces experiences, given the fact that India has got such vast varied nature of terrain, from extreme heights, where helicopters of Indian Air Force and Indian Army today operate on a routine basis.
Siachen Glacier.
Yeah. On a routine basis.
Yeah.
In the range of 20,000 feet.
And you've flown there.
Of course. I was posted there. I'm very fortunate to be part of Siachen Pioneers. But they've flown over from there to the Andaman Nicobars and to the jungles of Northeast, which is a different story altogether.
I was in Nagaland and
in the desert,
I was amazed at the skill of the helicopter pilots there.
In the deserts, over the vast expanses and the run.
We are a subcontinent. We have everything.
And mind you, my latest acquired appreciation is for our naval helicopter pilots, who fly over the seas, and we've got such a large coastline and so many embarked ships and going out there. Because in my previous job, I was flying as an offshore pilot, taking the ONGC people to their rigs. So I went to do that job because in the Air Force I didn't get to do that, so I thought, let me do that and get exposure to that. So.
And now you have a newfound admiration for them because that has its own set of challenges.
I'll be very honest. I'll be very honest. I had flown over the sea earlier in my earlier capacity as a test pilot and so on and so forth. But unless you do operate day in, day out, and you see that most violent weather phenomena of monsoons in the Indian Ocean, actually, Bay of Bengal, unless you see that in a helicopter off the sea about 50-100 miles into the sea, that's only when you calibrate yourself and then you realize that, yes, what exactly it's all about. So the point in saying that we have a very rich heritage and culture of helicopters with us in terms of expertise of operating it, in terms of maintaining it, in terms of operating it, in terms of exploiting it. All right. You mentioned Commodore Pushpaved, one of our very luminous seniors who has been on your show. He's spoken about as to how piston engine equivalent of S-55 from the Russian fleet, Mi-4, was flown. My mentor...
This is in 1971.
1971.
Yeah.
My mentor who passed...
And again, we are sitting very close to Sagat Chowk, named after General Sagat Singh Rathore, the great war hero of 1971. That's why the references.
So I'm coming back to my mentor who shaped me the way I am, for that matter. His pen name is Cyclic. C-Y-C-L-I-C. Cyclic. Cyclic is the stick of a helicopter. It has a collective of cyclic, unlike a stick or a throttle in an aeroplane. Cyclic has written some wonderful helicopter stories for your viewers. If you just Google that blog of his, Cyclic, he's no more, he's resting in peace. But if you Google that, Cyclic, that guy was my mentor, actually. So, and I learned a lot of history through him. So from that, I understood this fact that we had a very rich potential, culture, capability, capacity to have operated helicopters. And it is these people, are very seniors, who came out and then they started to fly in the civils. Now, as I sit here now with you through this period of 2020s, 2025 now actually, and I see and I travel and I research this particular topic, I realize that in the civil helicopter aviation, are we only just an aviation asset? That question came back to me in the answer which sprung into my mind. No, sir. We are perhaps an aviation asset in which an HNI wants to go, a high net worth individual wants to go from place A to place B, or whatever else he wants to do that way. But we are also...
Or politicians go campaigning.
Campaigning. So I'll come to it a little later. But we are also a great enabler. A great enabler. It is quite possible in the initial time in the armed forces, in the Air Force actually, all helicopter units had just one sentence, or one logo as they call it. One motto as they call it. Apatsu Mitram from Sanskrit. Friend in the time of emergency. Apatti.
Apatti.
Right? So that was our role. It changed. It became different. We started to supply rations to the armed forces, which are deployed much higher in the sky. We started flying attack helicopters. We tried to destroy tanks, and then so on and so forth. It diversified, but we remained opportunism. So from that category and background into the CV street, as I see it from now, around the world and in our own country, I find it's a good way to look at it from the point of view that we can use helicopters as enablers in the civil aviation.
Enablers of what?
Sorry?
Enablers of what?
Enablers of what? Yes.
Yeah,
good.
Because that's the important
so that is
operative
the
question.
So now, if you want to encapsulate the definition of a developed nation or a the way the India's trajectory has been, we are moving up the step and our economy is growing the way it is growing. Of course, our resources are also growing at a particular stage. But if you want to define that ways, you can see for yourself that the countries which are actually quite developed, they are quite concerned about a human life of their citizen.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it's one mark to see that all over the developed world, you will see one thing common. That if one human is missing, if one human is in emergency, the state deploys its resources to try and, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If there is a possibility of a vast country which is not very well connected, states make sure that they are able to pick up people who want to travel to interior or from interior want to come to a place which is more developed in a comprehensive manner, give them a connectivity on a larger route for an aeroplane to go to a long distance, increase their employability, increase their horizon, increase their aspiration, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So this is what I saw when I lived, and I've been across a few countries. I saw that this is a very important aspect. And it was to do with the fact that for this reason, you need an architecture in the government, the regulator, the operator, because after all, it's always a business.
Yeah.
So you need an operator, you need financial structures to be able to aid all this and bring this. Now, I started to think about all
this. So
this.
the architecture, the regulator, the operator, and the financial structure.
So that is where I'm coming to. And when
the ecosystem, what you're saying.
Absolutely. So when you stitch all this up, the thought occurred to me from what our Prime Minister propagated some time back, the regional connectivity. Because we realized that the people whom we were seeing in the interior, they had no scope of an access to any kind of a modern medicine, modern education, modern opportunity, enlarged horizon. They would take time to upscale and upstage and reach there. Is there a way and possibility to try and intervene with the help of this egg beater of ours? That's my hypothesis.
So your hypothesis is, if a country is well developed, then it uses helicopters to enlarge accessibility of modern medicine and greater opportunity. Yes. Would that be fair?
Yes. That would be very fair, actually.
Okay.
That would be very fair. So the whole idea was that, is it possible for us to deploy? Now,
India is a case study. Where do we stand? Do we actually use helicopters?
Oh yes.
Well.
Oh yes. We let me just put some bit of a statistics.
Sure.
Start with actually.
Yeah, that's always better.
So, number of helicopters registered in India on the civil registry with our regulator DGCA.
Director General Civil Aviation.
The directorate over there actually is in the region of 250, 270. It has improved sometime to 280, 290. It has come back to 250.
Okay.
So the order is 250.
Understood.
Plus or minus.
Okay.
All right. What would be the number of helicopters civil registered in US?
Thousands.
Perhaps. Let me give you an example. City of Sao Paulo.
Brazil. Not a rich place.
750.
750.
One
city.
Yeah. Just to put ourselves in perspective. Okay. Having said that,
what do they use those 750 helicopters for?
They use it for their own purpose. I will focus on ours actually.
Got it.
250 over here are being used for what? Let's count. A very prominent sector is offshore, where we fly.
Yeah.
There is a set of
which you were doing.
Which you are doing. The set of helicopters. They're doing that.
Going to oil rigs.
Hydrocarbon warriors.
Yeah.
Government service. Great job. Okay. All right. Then there is a very interesting market in India which has developed over these years of small light helicopters, which is called the pilgrimage sector.
Ah, yes, indeed.
Spiritual country.
Yeah.
All our sites are up high in the mountain.
Yeah.
Not very accessible to elder people.
So Vaishno Devi, you want to go, you can't climb.
Kedarnath, Badrinath, Char Dham, Hemkund Sahib, even famous Gurdwara over there.
Yeah.
Amarnath caves.
Of course.
Right. So some of these, why even in the mountains? I don't know. Now in the plains, Ram Janmabhoomi, Vrindavan, and
people are going by chopper.
No, I'm just saying.
Okay.
There is a possibility.
Got it.
What happens is, and you know that in India, viewers, we have as a spiritual countries, when people attain an age of 75 plus, they have shifted in some kind of a stage in life when they turn inwards and spiritual, and that is a time when they need to have a dialogue with the deities. And they need to go there and pay the respect and say that yes, we've been there and that. And the responsibility of the young sons and the daughters is to make sure that the parents are able to do that. It's a karmic circle that we have in our country. So if you have to chug along a train and then go there and mount a mule and try and do that, obviously many elderly people would not be able to do that. This is where this pilgrim sector is doing a yeoman service. Great job. Just look it up. Char Dham Yatra, starting from Dehradun, first dham, they will shift other people into a hopping manner, and within 3-4 days, you would have finished all that. Quite comfortably, apparently. Yes, it is being done for the matter. Very good sector. You mentioned
oil and gas and pilgrimage.
You mentioned politicians, elections. Electoral times are the times for helicopters in India. Civil helicopters. You'd be surprised.
I know my mother's brother was always in a helicopter.
So they are scouted. They are scouted much in advance, lined up much in advance. Alliances are made, drawn, so on and so forth. Mind you, helicopters are something which cannot be just plucked out from some place and being brought here in India because of the regulator and the structure which is involved. So it needs a great amount of planning, and there's a great set of professionals who are very good at that actually, and they're managing this. So electoral times. Charter is one area where people want to look. This is very also important. There is this.
What's a charter?
Charter. Yeah. So
charter.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah, somewhere.
So the example is that we have our industrial belt around Pune, right? So they are able to. There are many HNIs who are staying over there. They need to come to Mumbai, the city of Mumbai, our national capital, and they need to do work and need to get back.
Yeah.
So each of those,
really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So
that must be a half an hour or something.
So that they fly in the helicopter from there and land up to Mahalakshmi Racecourse in the heart of Mumbai, do their work and get picked up from there and go back.
Exactly. So they escape the traffic jam, all the rest of Bombay. Their meetings are in that area.
And the point which I would make a little later, if you were to land at the busy airport of Delhi and to go to a suburb called Gurgaon,
which is not far.
Which is not very far, but it is far time-wise because of traffic and everything else. And if it were possible for you to hop onto a helicopter and go there, actually, the network will improve.
Look, my friends have missed flights because of traffic jams many times.
So I'm talking about main cities, and there are several such cities which are now suffering. Great amount of traffic is coming in from Middle East into the southern India. Great amount of traffic is coming in from Europe into central India, southern India. Many airports are growing. Government has done so much of work to make airports. Connectivity in between them is also, that is where the charter comes.
Got it.
So if you have a requirement, you see a charter company, you say, can we hire this, and can you go there, can we do this?
So
we do this.
In a different universe, you could land in Delhi International Airport, fly a helicopter and escape the traffic jam and make sure you get your flight to the US or Europe or Japan.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
Which is not happening as of now.
Got it.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
That should be one of the cases which is
got it.
So this is one sector.
Yeah.
And the last sector is some kind of a fun flying pleasure trip. You can see Mumbai for 10 minutes.
Got it.
Like Grand Canyon tours.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
you want to see the skyline of a country, you take an evening chopper tour or something like that.
Right. So these are the few sectors which are of prominence and I'm flying right now.
Yeah, but, sorry to interject, but you've not touched upon something we've discussed in the past and something I have seen, and I have a friend who's a helicopter pilot and an emergency medic who goes around rescuing people who've had ski accidents or snowboarding accidents in Austria. and that medical sector is huge. Of course, I'm a doctor's son. My father, was a surgeon for decades.
So this is where, thank you for triggering my point. You spoke about Austria. Let me tell your viewers that this number is abyssally small in India, and I can safely put it close to zero because it will run to decimal something.
Got it.
Great amount of work has gone through to try and start what you are referring to as HEMS, Helicopter Emergency Medical Services, right? To start here in India, that actually a lot of work has gone through, but some of the other agencies will not succeed.
I see. But given our population, I would think that this, probably for me, saving life is what you began.
Yes.
So therefore, this is probably the top sector in some ways.
This is where I come to the fact is there a case in point in our country for our people to consider, our powers to be considering that can the helicopter be utilized for public service?
Exactly.
For public service.
And you've done disaster relief. You've done flood relief.
Let's start with.
So there's so many case examples there.
Emergency medical services.
Sure. Let's start with that.
Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Now it has started to happen in our country in some small way. But before that, let me come back just a step behind that.
Sure.
All right. So recently, our Honourable Minister of Civil Aviation has come out.
Who's the minister? What's his name?
You stumped me. He is.
I rarely refer to ministers as honourable.
So let me tell you what good work he has done for that matter. Actually, about 6 months back, in one of our conferences, I come from an institute, from a society called Rotary Wing Society of India. It is a body of professionals which has been there for quite some years now, and we've been trying to build this spirit, this momentum into the helicopter industry, sort of the facilitator between the regulators and the operators. So we try and sort out both sides. So he came to our conference and he announced to one of our queries that, sir, can we have a helicopter accelerator cell in the DGCA? So hats off to him, a very learned man, and he is. Pragmatically, he declared then that we would rather have a helicopter directorate at the DGCA. That promise of his, about 6-7 months back, he's completed it now. Order is in place.
Yeah.
Order is in place now, and the directorate is now being formed. So the process.
So he's created the directorate.
Yes.
Jolly good on him. Yeah.
Just 2 days back, there was a very good seminar which happened, and I read about. I could not attend. I was abroad. I read about it actually as to how the industry component, C2I and FICCI and everybody else have come together and brought out this concept of how helicopters can be utilized for public service. So this is where I want to bring it in the issue, that all calculations, projections which are done by the industry here in India, given the states, given the calamities that we have, given the terrain that we have, given the natural calamities that we have. You recall Sikkim?
Absolutely.
How the Teesta washed up everything else down to Bangladesh, right?
Exactly.
Glacial lakes bursting out over there. Do you recall some fires in Himachal?
Sure.
In Uttarakhand? Right. Like it burnt in LA and California. Something like that.
And just to add context to our viewers, if you study reports by various organizations, the number of glacial lakes in the Himalayas and in the Andes, actually, all the higher mountains, is increasing because glaciers are melting. And the number of forest fires across the world, including India, are increasing. So we know that this is the future. We will have to deal with them.
So surprisingly, on that same note, actually, now that we are aware that these man-made and natural calamities are on the rise.
Correct.
The density of population is
both in frequency and magnitude and severity.
And the density of population is such that we are occupying low-lying areas, we are occupying water channels, and so on and so forth. Right.
I mean, that dam in Himachal just washed away a village like that.
Yes. There is a region. There's an area of forest fire where we are right now just waiting and watching.
Yeah.
Of course, the Air Force has some equipment available, but they take time to mobilize. Sure. They are not there. They will always take time. More importantly, the National Disaster Relief Force, which is part of the NDMA.
National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA. So
they are part of the NDRF. and under them the state SDRFs, actually, state disaster relief forces, their plans are not based around the helicopter, around the organic availability of a helicopter. Right? If you make a plan, like what we used to say in the armed forces earlier, I'll give an example. From the northeast, when the monsoons are about to break, from Shillong, where I had an appointment, I would pre-position one helicopter in Pune. From Bagdogra, I'll ask him to go and park himself in Pune. Because we knew that.
Of course.
Sometime or the other, Kali will break through and
it's it's an eminently foreseeable event.
There's no rocket science. So pre-positioning was one good aspect. You can tell them that, prepare the food packets and get things ready and blah, blah, blah. So, we could do some recce, we could do some plan. So the plan was being made around availability of a helicopter, rather than the helicopter to come in.
Exactly. So you're just anticipating.
Yes. So when you make a plan with organic availability of a helicopter, then it has great amount of advantages.
Understood.
You can save lives. You can save property. You can save cost. You can save
all of that.
Money. Right. And you can respond that way. And that is a need of the hour.
Understood.
That is a need of the hour. Because
disasters.
You know that with disasters getting worse and worse, you are going to lose more and more and more.
Got it.
So the idea is for prevention as much as possible. Nip the bud. In the US, the recent fire when they took place, I happened to be visiting US at that point of time, and I was watching on television, Cal Fire, their companies were fighting the fire. The point was very clear. Active firefighting by helicopters. They go and douse the fire. Passive firefighting, that means to cut off swath, is fixed in aeroplane. He drops the hydrant over a large swath so that the fire doesn't come this way. So, there is strategy to be correct for the technology part. Okay. Our country's weather pattern, seismic pattern, terrain is such that every month of the year, some or the other part of our country is prone to a disaster.
Absolutely.
Forget that. Unfortunate train accidents in our country. Though the government and the ministries acted to try and minimize them as much as possible, but you keep hearing them every now and then. All right. When that happens,
the answer is yes and no. The last 4-5 years have been, railways have done many good things, but one of the things they didn't do well was hiring engineers and making a few poor policy errors. So we shouldn't say, they've been doing a great job when they haven't.
No, I'm not saying that they're doing a great job. I said, be that it may. Point here is that when the disaster strikes, actually, after some time of day and night and trains have gone, or blah, blah, we know that if you make a temporary helipad, move people in, take out mass casualties, put them in a sector for matter, get something, take a dozer, underslung, put it down there, which helicopters can do.
Absolutely.
You can move heavy equipment much quicker. Some makeshift arrangement quickly are made done over there. But this will not happen on the spur of the moment.
Of course not.
So this would only happen if you have planned for it, if you have done it that way, if you have kept it that way. This is where HEMS come in. Now, the
HEMS as in
helicopter emergency medical services. Have you seen the statistics of road accidents in India?
Highest in the world.
Right. Have you seen the golden hour intervention rate of ours? Abysmally poor.
So the highest accidents, the worst interventions.
Did you see the growth of the highway network?
Extraordinary. That's where one has to give Nitin Gadkari.
But did you see? But did you see helipads coming alongside?
No, actually.
HEMS. Constrained because of that.
Understood.
Right? At that time, if somebody would have taken note, we would have made helipads over there and put things around place and have structure, regulator, operator, government, policy. It was in place. We could have done that.
Understood.
Even now, it is not too late. It can still be done.
Got it.
So
you should meet Nitin Gadkari.
No, I mean, I am no. Please, I am speaking on behalf of many of my
indeed.
But people have spoken. People have spoken. Whichever way, everybody's trying to do their own bit. Actually,
you have to beat the drum, though.
Now, I want to summarize this issue by saying a simple point. Actually, that the reason why HEMS have not taken over is just not because of these regulator or the government or the policy and so on and so forth. It is also because there is no business model which can be developed.
Understood.
After all, you have to facilitate that as well.
Of course.
So you need to
who's going to bear the cost?
You need to see that.
Yeah.
Wherever little has happened, and I know for a state's chief minister has put a helicopter in his constituency and said that anybody who falls ill within 100 kilometers is to be brought back to
which
the city.
state? And which chief minister? Madhya Pradesh. Which chief minister? Shivraj Singh Chauhan?
No, sir.
Okay.
You are a little outdated.
I'm
Please
very outdated.
please look up the new name. And like I said, I found as, I stay focused to my own point. Actually. This is what he's done.
Yeah.
So
this is the recent guy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So this is what is happening. So now, and there is state of Uttarakhand where I think the AIMS has got a helicopter now. They're trying to put a helicopter there and get people from there. And
AIMS is one of India's top medical
chain of medical
institutions,
which are in different states and
teaching hospital.
Teaching hospital.
Yeah.
So it is happening, but
All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Yes, crack on.
But the point is that is it happening to the tune that we want? Is it happening at the trajectory that we want? And what needs to be done next around this directorate that we have formed to try and do that?
Excellent.
So this is where my crazy hypothesis comes into me as helicopter utilization in civil aviation as a development index for our country. Our Prime Minister has given us the mandate that we have to make our country develop to Viksit Bharat. You can translate that for us.
Developed India.
He has given us a mandate. And I am just looking as an honest...
I think that was the mandate from day one. I mean, that was the dream from the moment of independence.
So having changed
that was the key reason we wanted independence.
I'm saying from having changed my hat from a military man now to a civil helicopter pilot, I'm just putting my thinking caps on and I'm sharing with you my hypothesis.
Excellent.
Saying that fact that yes, if we facilitate helicopters all across, all over, there will be a possibility. We don't have the size of farms where crop dusting could be required, actually.
Sure.
Perhaps. But there could be some cases where it can be done. I don't know. Is it possible or not? Surveys, is it possible or not? I don't know.
I would say surveys, perhaps, yes.
Yeah. So one needs to look at that. Exactly. So those of us who are into public service, into policy formulation, into public domain, and trying to exploit all this, actually, can we do that?
Maybe you should write a piece for us on that.
We can do that. But having said that, in my perhaps last couple of minutes, if you would give me this action, that this gap which we saw to a large extent like this is now being actively fulfilled by drones, unmanned aerial systems.
Yeah.
All right,
they've exploded.
Yeah. They are going to explode. They have a directorate before the helicopters were formed here in the DVCA. A lot of work has gone through. You are likely to see very soon actually for that. But the fact remains either helicopters or drones, unmanned aerial systems, whichever way it be, unless we took a comprehensive review of our own system, which involves Airport Authority of India, which involves the big companies operating the airports of India. Can you imagine? Not a single airport in our country has something called as non-interfering simultaneous operations. Which means at the busy runway, where the aeroplanes are coming and landing from ILS approach from outside, there should be a corridor for the helicopters to come around and quietly land in a place. If you want to land a helicopter into Delhi airport, you may have to circle around and come back. The HNIs do not like to go out of Delhi airport because they may be stuck at the Delhi airport for 2 hours. And helicopter can't move an inch. Because we do not have non-interfering simultaneous operations. All right. So there are many things which need to be taken. It is going to be a holistic solution. And I call upon all the stakeholders through your channel, actually, especially the ministry, to take charge of this, to drive this understanding, to make sure that there's a business model which exists, which would talk about leasing helicopters, making the facilitating, all that will have to go across all along, actually. By the way, do not misunderstand me if the state governments are not using helicopters for their for their population. They're using Andaman and Nicobar, Daman and Diu, Northeast. They have shuttles which go across. We used to have a very beautiful shuttle from Guwahati to Shillong ALG, which I have availed myself as a military person. So it is quite possible that it is being done, but it is being done only from the passenger fare bearing that kind of an It is not being run, it is not being thought about, or perhaps it's being thought about but is not fructifying as of now for whatever challenges I mentioned to you as a wholesome public service platform. Moment that happens, moment you break that glass ceiling, you will see that number of 250, which means that you are an industry larger worth which means that you will start to galvanize everything else. Would it surprise to you that if a boy or girl wants to become a helicopter pilot in India today, he doesn't have a school?
So where does that boy or girl go?
So 95% of our helicopter pilot and civil industries have come out from the armed forces. And there are very few who have gone to Florida and places like that.
Yes, I remember meeting someone who flies politicians, and he trained in California.
Extremely costly for them.
Yeah.
And imagine whatever little facility, I think perhaps one or have been made in India now, it is even more expensive.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is a surprise.
So people go to Serbia, do the training from there, come back. And
so there's a supply side constraint. So, yes. This ties in with my thesis that India, you've always, since independence, because we had a colonial bureaucracy, because that was followed by socialism, the government has always throttled supply side activity. And I would argue, as someone who studied economics and philosophy and politics, is that, let people breathe, let industries bloom, follow Deng Xiaoping a little bit, not Mao Zedong.
It's an interesting aspect about that. But I just say, unfortunately, being a military man, I have this crazy habit of looking at a low-hanging fruit and the middle-term solution and the long-term solution. So as I see it, low-hanging fruit is that people are coming out of the services, they at least should be facilitated.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
Not much. I hope it happens or it is happening. My understanding, it is not happening as much as...
Oh, wow. So what do they do once they retire?
They have to go through several processes, and there are many checks and balances, which is required. Which is certainly required. Checks and balances,
sure, but
like FA and EASA are required. But they have a good transition policy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have.
Yeah.
Okay, we work it out, howsoever actually. There is no place to train, there is no place for young boys and girls to have enough. When you become a sizable industry, as the number 8 through 250 to 800 and thereabouts, which is, by the way, a FICCI and a C2I study have proven it accordingly, that minimum helicopters required in India, if you go by this thought process, is around 800.
Yeah, that is Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and CII is Confederation of Indian Industry. So they want the number from 250 to 8,000, which
their studies have shown that the market is huge because we are the largest population.
Absolutely.
We are quite vulnerable.
Huge leap.
Like I said, we are quite vulnerable. We are quite vulnerable from different sides. All right. So we have a possibility to absorb, but all this can only happen provided there is a ground available. So there is, though I once again thank the Minister of Civil Aviation right now, that he has gone ahead and done this actually for momentum. But I also hope that this momentum is now continued so that we can lay the field, we can sow the seeds, we can put the structures in place, we can mobilize. If you want to get a foreign pilot to fly in India, FATA rules, the amount of paperwork which is required to be done is crazy. The accident of Pawan Hans which took place into the seas last monsoons in Mr. Sikorsky S-76 Delta went down and we lost people who were the passengers. The pilots who were brought from outside, they could not get to fly in India at all. That was one of the reasons. So, huge challenge. Huge challenge. So, I'm just saying, I don't want to go into specifics of that actually, but I'm just saying the need is we need to sow that field. We need to put
the architecture. Bring up so if you're watching this and you're in the Prime Minister's office, you're in the ministry, then you bloody well get your act together and create the architecture. Don't throttle India's economic growth and development.
Use us as enablers.
Exactly. Ashutosh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.